Alrighty, week 11 in our class, and we are quickly moving towards the week before our next Develop It dev project. So, and as I talked about last week, right, because of the major upheaval that our state, our country, our world is going through, our classes here at City have gone through a lot of change as well. But that doesn't affect you because you're online students already, but you may be taking other classes. So I just like to chat about that. If you are taking face-to-face classes starting next week, those classes will be taught in the online modality. You should hear from those instructors. As I'd mentioned last week, this week that we suspended face-to-face classes, I have been training other faculty, getting them ready to be online. And so what I'm going to do in our class is I'm going to implement one of the tools that I taught because I see the benefit of it. Because, I keep saying, come talk to me, but maybe I just haven't made it easy enough. And I'm going to make it easier. So last night, week 10, Learn Together, you needed to write a create of the CRUD operations, create, read, update, delete. You need to just do a C for our email application concept. Okay, so, and the only question I got was from Tim, and I appreciate that Tim reached out to me and asked me. But remember these methods that you're learning through Andrew's course for the native, and again, I'm going to say it's the Mongo native driver. These methods we're using, insert one or insert many, are asynchronous functions. So when you set up your database collection pointing to your instance of Mongo running, when you give it the data for, let's say, insert many, because you could have inserted one, no problem. But when you do that, you then do a .then to get the results, and that will just give you some output, and that's what you needed to submit last night. So next week shouldn't be a big surprise. I'll have you do those other operations, which I've already recorded for week 11, the Learn Together for that week. Okay, so I'll just say this too, because I don't know to what extent this shelter in place only essential services is affecting you. But if you are someone that could use a little more time on the all important Dev 1, I'm going to give you if you need it. And I suggest if you don't need it, don't do it, because the sooner you get something done, the better. Maybe you can get it done so you can feel good about going out to spring break. But if you are, I'll give you until after spring break to do a code review. But code review sessions for spring break are already going to be up and available. I will link them into our Dev 1, so you have a link to sign up for those. Okay, so now let me show you what I've added to our course from this point forward. So I put it in here so it'd probably be hopefully easy to see, is that for our code reviews and for my office hours, I'm going to be holding them on Zoom through this link. So any of these times, I will have my Zoom open and you can just drop in just like you would like any office hour for any instructor. But hopefully I see you more. That's my hope. But once you click on here, then it's going to open up Zoom. And you as a student, because you're already logged in there, should have the ability to just go right into Zoom. Okay. And here's what I want you to know. If for some reason that's not the one I wanted. That's my Zoom. I'll go ahead and end that. No. That's me. So one thing I've done is I've set up my Zoom personal link, or just my Zoom events, or my Zoom room. I like that. So that if I happen to not be in there, you can go in there And anyway, and it'll tell me if you're in there waiting. Okay. So here's the thing I would recommend is just between now and definitely now before now and Dev 1, but anytime, especially during my office hour. But if like I keep saying, if it doesn't work for you to come see me, you can get in there and I will get a notice. And if you give me enough time, if I am not if I'm not on another task that I can't remove myself from, I will jump in there. So test it out, you know? And if I don't see it until later, I'll reply to you and tell you, oh, I saw this, but sorry, I couldn't get in there. I am still training faculty this week, and I'll be doing some of that training next week. So just know that you are my priority. Okay. Okay. So just looking at the content for next week, we finish up our native MongoDB CRUD operations. Oh, and if you want to see that code example, let me show you the code example from last night that you needed to do. So this is, now that you've set up the, and this is destructuring, right? You'll see this soon. And then you'll set up the connection string. So this is where it points to what's running on your computer. I set up my database. Then I said Mongo connect with my connect URL. I use new parser true. This is just something that the newer versions of Mongo wants. So what this is it's an asynchronous method. Okay. This connect is, we're not even to the, so that's why you get an error and you get a client back, right? So if there's an error, it can't connect, it'll tell us. Otherwise, it's going to set up the client, and then we attach the database name to the client. And then we run on that instance, that DB connect, we run insert many. And this is where I just sent in an object. Okay. Send it in. So this is the records 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now if I roll this up, right? So once I do the insert, because again, this is an asynchronous function, then, and that's probably the worst thing to say, but when you call then, it's like, go do this then. And in this case, what happens is this insert many gives you just some information back, and that then will hold the resulting information. I could call this ops, or I could call this result code or something, but then I can just log that out. And if you don't put in a catch, it will throw an error. So this is the format that, again, we've learned callbacks. Now we're learning promises, so that you understand that the .then, and even though you're not writing the promise, you're not doing new promise, which you'll learn about, by calling the insert many, that does return a promise. Okay. So it's one of those things you start to get used to seeing, which is you're either writing, setting up a new promise, running the async function, getting back a result, or you're using things that just are built-in written this methods that actually will return a promise, and then you just have to handle that promise, what comes back. And basically, again, it's basically the callback. It's not basically, it is a callback. What happens when you come back from doing this? You go out and do this, because this could take a little bit, right? Imagine you're doing 1,000 records. We're only doing 5. Takes a little bit. When you're done, give me the result of doing this insert many. Again, I could have named this anything. And in this case, I just console logged that out. Okay, so next week, you'll do the other operations. And for your Dev 1, you will write, and I've been tempted to update this, but I'm not going to, but you'll at least do a create for your concept, because you'll end up in part 1 writing a full stack, writing to a text file, or sorry, JSON file that we've been doing. But for part 2, I want you to just, because I want to see that you've set up your local system and write a create operation on the native MongoDB driver. When I say that again, that's the insert many is part of the Mongo. And the reason I keep trying to contextualize that is we're going to move this week, next week, into using Mongoose. Often people will say Mongo and Mongoose together because it's so popular to use Mongoose because it gives you some of the additional functionality that many people would want in a traditional SQL like database, some relational stuff and some validation things, which there's some of that built into the native driver. But we're going to switch and we won't be doing insert many. There'll be other methods that you'll learn as we move into you writing your own API. Okay, good stuff. We're doing some really cool stuff, really relevant, good market skills for you to know here. So hope to see you in one of my Zoom office hours soon. Have a great weekend. Bye.